Hey guys, BoostedWheelie here. Just wanted to make a quick video for you for just some kind of tips on getting the starter out on E36. This is a 318 Ti with the M44 1.9 liter. And this does have the threaded type starter. So it's the one where you've got the E12 bolts that go into the back side of the starter, and it does not have the nuts on the front side. So it's kind of a bit tricky and didn't see a whole lot of videos or tips or anything regarding this. So I figured I'd kind of show you some tips and tools that I use to get the starter out now that I finally have got it out here, and kind of show you what I'm working with here. So over here, let me get my light for you guys. So I did end up removing the whole intake, lower and upper. That way I would have good access to the starter. I'm not just replacing the starter, I'm also testing a couple things here, and also wanting to clean some things up. So I know some guys will argue back and forth saying, yes, remove your intake, or no, it's not necessary. Why would you remove your intake? Me personally, I just wanted it out of the way so I had clear, solid access to my starter and everything around it. And that also meant removing the alternator as well, just so you get a very good reach at this and everything. And one thing I will say about this whole spider wiring unit here, this was pretty tricky to get out. What I ended up doing was I removed this alternator first. That gave me some room to get a lot of these connectors out, like here, your oil pressure sensor here. There was a couple that were underneath here. So you'll be able to get all of that out pretty easy once you disconnect that alternator. However, you will be left with these 4 wires still underneath of it. So this goes to the top of the starter solenoid. This goes to the bottom of the starter solenoid. This is attached in with your positive side where your battery terminal connection comes in. That goes onto this. Then there's also the wires to your alternator. So you've got to remove that. It's these 3 then will still be connected to the starter, and that was probably the hardest part of getting the spider assembly out of the way. So what I did was, once I got to just these 3 wires, I unbolted the whole entire intake, the lower part of it, and I kind of popped it back and up a little bit, and that gave me a lot more room and a lot more clearance in order to get my wrench and a socket on there to remove those 3 connections and then be able to pull this whole spider wiring assembly out. What I'm going to probably do when I put this back together is I am going to likely cut back here and kind of remove my wiring, these 3 wires, back up to about this point here. So that way I can run these back behind and then underneath the intake and bolt these onto my starter. Because then once those are connected and that starter's on, then it's going to be a lot easier to then just pop your intake back on, throw the rest of the connectors through that hole and connect everything back up. And we'll make assembly and disassembly a lot easier in the future if I ever have to get to this point again, which likely won't, because if I for some reason need to get this far or this deep into it again, this motor's coming out and that M50's going in soon anyway. So just want to get this thing running and driving for right now. I'm trying to get a couple events with it. I've been really behind with this car and just life in general, just busy with work and with life and other projects. I haven't had the time that I've wanted to with this car, and unfortunately it seems like every time I work on it, I always get to something that stops me. Parts I have to go buy, special tools I have to get, whatever it may be. It seems like there's been quite a bit of roadblocks with this car, so that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, once you get to this point though, you get all of your wires disconnected, you get your intake out of the way, get your alternator out of the way. Then you're just left with your starter, and you're gonna have 2 of these E12 bolts that come in from the back side and thread into your starter here. So your starter is gonna sit in just like this, and then you'll be able to see these bolts, but you're not gonna have very good access to it from the top. Now, I've seen some guys use adjustable wrenches and different things like that to get it from this top side, but I didn't want to mess with all that. So what I ended up doing was, well, I had to replace this drive shaft anyway. So I got this drive shaft out of the way. I removed the transmission mount and then went ahead and lowered the transmission down a little bit. Once you lower this transmission and the back of the motor down a bit, it gives you quite a bit of clearance of those two bolts. So what you got to do, get your E12, get a nice long extension here. You're going to come up from underneath of it, and then you're going to be able to see and have really good access. It's kind of dark right here, but everything's going to be just right up top here, and you'll be able to, you'll have all this clearance right here to see. So you take your long extension, put it back there, tap on the end with it with a hammer a couple times just to make sure it's all the way on that E12 bolt and that you don't strip it or round it. Give it a couple taps, and then right here you've got all kinds of clearance to fit a breaker bar and impact. I used a 1/2-inch ratchet just to break it loose because I didn't want to chance stripping or rounding off these E12 bolts. Once I broke it loose, I used my impact to buzz them out the rest of the way. And then once those two bolts are out, your starter's out. So a lot of guys I see argue top side or do it bottom side. I did a little bit of both just to make my life a lot easier, so I'm not sitting here cussing and screaming at the thing all day, and just be able to give you that access that you really need to get these threaded starters off. So just some tips and tricks for you guys. Hope that helps out a little bit. I know I was struggling with it. These starters on these E36 BMWs are definitely not easy by any means, but they are doable, especially if you got the tools and the time and the patience to do it. So just want to give you guys some tips and tricks, and hopefully this helps you guys out. Thanks. Have a great day. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Take a look at some of my other videos on this channel. Subscribe. I would appreciate it, and hope you guys have a great day. Peace.